Okay, welcome to the Chinese Medicine Podcast. Back for another year, 2025. So we've done a few streams, but it's another year in terms of it's Chinese New Year. So today I'm going to be answering your questions. Just waiting for the signal to come through. Hopefully it is coming through. It says excellent connection, but I can't see the screen on on the YouTube. I can't see the video here. Let's see what's going on there. So let's answer some questions today, and also I want to talk about the 5 elements in the new year. I know a lot of people jump into these streams after the fact, and kind of you can also be putting your questions in the comments for the next, not sure why that's so blurry on the screen there. I'm sorry about that. It's just a little picture that I've done that's a bit of a screenshot. I must have screenshotted something very small. So what we're going to be talking about is, let's have a quick look here. I'm just going to check the stream's working properly. Here we go. We're going to answering your questions. So this is a stream for people in the USA, Canada, Australia, so we can have a bit of a chit chat. And I'm testing out different time zones. It's early-ish, 9 a.m. in the morning for me in Australia. So I'm just going to check this is all sounding good. Sounding good on here. Let's have a look. Okay, great. It is. I have to do that every time because I don't have anyone to do it for me. So yeah, we're going to be talking about, I thought I'd start off before we get until people jump into the stream, about the 5 elements and the new year. And I've also got a question about the role of fruits in dampness from one of my other videos about damp heat. So we can kind of talk about that. Now, if you're into the 5 elements and you've kind of jumped into some of my, I'll just put that there because that's what we're going to do first. Maybe you've done one of my courses that I've got on self-care with the 5 elements. That's a great place to start if you are a bit interested in it. If you don't want to pay any money and you just want to learn it for free, I don't have all of the content available on YouTube, but I have some of it in my little videos on each element, right? That's not really self-care. It's just kind of learning about the personality types. And this is a good book to get. I'm just going to put that in the screen somewhere. You can see this. It's called Between Heaven and Earth by Harriet Benefield and Ephraim Korngold. So if you want to learn more about 5 element personality types or charismatic, like these types, that's a great book to get started with. So yeah, as people jump into the stream, hopefully they can see this, and you are interested enough to jump in and stay in and ask a question. So you can have any questions about any things. Yeah, another book that I like, and this was a bit hard to find because people often ask me for book suggestions, is this one here. I'm going to see if we can get that in there. Aromatherapy, Healing of the Spirit. Now, it's the worst title for what the book is about. It's actually all the essential oils in a Chinese medicine way, right? So it should be called the Chinese medicine way of thinking about essential oils or something like that. And this is a handy book for thinking about, like it even talks about, it even has like, sort of like explains what the 5 elements are if you don't know what that is. And then for each oil, like they're all in just order. It'll have like, here's like, say for instance, frankincense, and it sort of has a 2-page thing on each oil talking about that. So that's a handy one if you're wanting to use a bit of essential oils in self-care, especially if you already have the oils at home. Like a lot of people have a few essential oils lying around and they're like, what can I use this? Like I want to use this in a different way. I'll be a bit more purposeful about what I'm using. So in the 5 element personality types or characteristics type of idea, right? The concept is that all those traits, their personality traits, they are within human beings, but they're just more dominant in others. And they're like emotions that we all have, personality traits. You could think about it like that. You could, and so what I'll do is I'll just go through what each one brings to us. And what's great about this new year in terms of the year of the snake is that is about shedding the old, and because snakes shed their skin, and it's about growth and new things. Now, I'm not into Chinese astrology much more than, every year it's like happy Chinese New Year, and you might Google what does that mean for me and my birth year and that kind of thing, and that's all fun. But at the same time, the year is what you make it, right? It's who you are. We're trying to develop who we are. And each year when it's a new year, the best thing I love about Chinese New Year is you get 2 New Years. You get one at New Year's if you're, I'm sure even Chinese people celebrate normal New Year, like calendar New Year or whatever it's called. And then you've got Chinese New Year. So if you fell off the wagon with your New Year's goals, if you were feeling like I didn't quite get there, I didn't make any New Year goals, here's another chance. It's a new chance. In Australia, we're in summer. In the UK and China and all the rest of the world, US, you're in winter, right? And you're coming into spring. And this is why they call it the Spring Festival in China, in Hong Kong and lots of other countries, because spring is the time of doing those new things. So it makes sense that this would be the new year. It would make sense that the new year is in spring. Aren't the Chinese so clever? So let's think about each different element. What are the personality, the characteristics, what are the traits and that we can use, that we all have inside us, that we can kind of utilize to help us have a better new year. So the first thing, I'm going to start with earth instead of, I usually start with wood because the generating cycle generally sort of people start it with wood, but let's start with something different, earth, right? So earth is the nurture of the whole system. It's relationships, getting to know people, being involved in your life, having care and nourishment, right? So in a, sorry, my nose has gotten so itchy. And I started the stream by not sitting down. I've got this sort of sit-stand desk, and so I've got this kind of, I better sit down, otherwise I'm gonna power up here like a crazy power tool. So nurture, right, is the earth, what the earth element brings to us, and this is through digestion as well, right? Like think about foods that you eat. It should be a nurturing feeling, right? You eat something, like think about the time when you're really, really hungry and you're like, oh, you're so satisfied by that food. It's like, yes, that's nurtured me. That's what food should do. And, within relationships, the earth element is that nurturing. It's that looking after. Now, when it's out of balance, these are people that become very needy type of people. Like they're at your house all the time. They'll never leave. They don't seem to have any sense of boundaries, because like everything, what I love about thinking about these types and things with the 5 elements is that they are what do you call it? Like they're a part of all of us, but it's like there's a coming and a going of each part. Like it's out of balance to be all of one and never none of that. and all of earth with nothing else would be that neediness, right? That almost that greedy neediness where you're it's not nurturing others. So there can be a type of a neediness, let's say, but I wouldn't call it neediness as such, that is nurturing actually to other people. How does that work, Marie? That sounds a bit weird, like you're needy but you're nurturing others. Well, like if I ask people for help, there's an aspect of that actually helps them too, right? It enables them to feel a sense of connection, right? And there are some times where you help other people and it costs you and you'd like, shit, I don't want to do this all the time. And if that person asked me to do that stuff all the time, I just wouldn't do it. I like we would lose our friendship. But there's a part of that coming and going. And that's what the earth element sort of brings, is that that nurture of like, I'm like a giving, like you're able to give, but you're also given back too. So if you're around other people that have got that working now, when you get into a relationship that's not going well, you might be a person that's easy to give, and no giving's coming back to you, and that's not good either. So the more we learn about this, the better society will be, and hopefully everyone will make the world a better place. So that's one thing that Earth can sort of bring to us, is nurturing and kindness and feeling nurtured as well. And that brings us to diet, right? So this is a good time to get your diet into that place of nurturing, right? So if people are just jumping in the stream now, they can ask questions. Please feel free to ask a question that you'd like to ask. I'm not sure what's a good time to do these streams because of I'm on the other side of the world. So I thought I'd give this one a try and see what happens. The Friday night one seems to be good for people in the UK. It seems to be a lively time. So appreciate people's interaction. Right. Anyway, so you can just interrupt me with a different question. That's totally fine. So what we're talking about is like the 5 elements. We started with the earth element, so that nurturing and that leads us to think about your diet. If your diet isn't nurturing, this is a good place to start. If you feel like you eat a meal and you don't feel satisfied, as in I'm still hungry, I've eaten all this food, well, you're probably not eating the right foods or foods that are nurturing to you. And then that leads us into thinking, okay, maybe we're eating unhealthy foods or things like that. Denser foods, more richer foods are better in winter. You can have a bit of a lighter diet in summer. I wasn't planning to make this stream like telling you what to eat in terms of your diet, but that's a good place to start. Okay, so that's earth. So if we go around the generating cycle, metal comes next. Now metal is like a bit of the stoicism, morals, doing the right thing in the community, doing the right thing for society, often a sense of rules and regulations as well. When I think of metal, I often think of some of those aspects that's taught by Jordan Peterson, especially in his Rules for Life. Just the concept of, okay, we've got to establish rules in our life. Like, that's a metal concept. We need those boundaries. I remember when I first moved out of home as a young person, you've had a lot of rules, and my parents weren't meanly strict or anything, but they just had plenty of rules. I'm sure every family does, right? You got to be home by a certain time. If you're not going to be home by a certain time, you got to call us. And there was like, you just don't have as much freedom to do what you're going to do until you've got your own money, right? Once you've got your own money and you're responsible for your own stuff, is somewhat in those years, it's like, okay, the rules are going out the door in different ways. I can come home at whatever time I want. I've got my own car. I can drive where I want to go. And eat whatever food I want. Now, some people explore those things and that's great, but then they maybe don't come back to some boundary, right? Like setting a bedtime. We need that. And that's a metal aspect that metal brings to us, is sort of the regulation and the benefit of some sort of regulation there, right? So methodical things, having systems for things. Now, if you are out of balance metal, or metal's out of balance for you, the systems are ruling you, and you're like, I have to do it step by step, and I can never change that. Never explore any creativity in that. The systems are dominating you, and they're maybe not working for you. But having systems that work for you and serve you and help you do what you're going to do, that's a good aspect of metal. So if there's things in your life that are constantly in disarray, like constantly in chaos, that's where we can draw metal. And maybe that's something you need to do in the new year, or that would help you in the new year, is to think about, how can I use metal in this aspect of metal. Discipline, systems, routine is probably a good word to use, right? So things that you do, either like I'll talk about for myself. I'm doing this program at the moment called 75 Hard, and something that's come to realize that it changes your thought process, right? So you basically, I won't go into the super details of the program, but like you have to do these certain tasks every day, and if you don't do them, then you're starting again. Okay, you start from day one. So part of it is exercise. You've got to do 2 workouts a day. One of them has to be outside, and one of them could be inside, or it could be outside as well, right? But one of them has to be outside. So no matter what, right? No matter if you're living in the snow, in the sleet, and the rain, if you've decided to do this program now, like for me, it's very hot, right? So yesterday I think it was about 41 degrees Celsius, which is, I don't know how much that is in Fahrenheit, but it's hot. It's about the peak of how hot we get, although the week before it got to 44. So overnight, like it was still 30 degrees, 32, maybe 33 at night. And so I like to do my walk in the cool of the evening, and that would be lovely. Yesterday there was no real cool of the evening, so you kind of, maybe I'll walk around, I'll do my walk later at night, do my outside workout at night, or you might go to the beach or do something fun like that if you've got the time for that. But what that's made me realize is, because you're doing this thing, it's not like the question doesn't come to your mind every day of like, am I going to do this? It's like more, how am I going to do this? Now, I don't like too much rigid structure, right? But I know that that's good for me. So this is a good example of someone who's not a metal type, but you can draw that aspect of metal. You can draw in the benefit of metal to help you. And the benefit of metal to help you would be like, okay, you got to do a workout every day, no matter what. And then the creativity of wood for me is like, well, how am I going to do that today? And whereas a metal driven person would be probably planning that out weeks in advance even. Like they have to know, and they would structure their day. So your individual wiring should be coming through in this, right? But at the same time, I don't just say, oh, I'm a wood person, I should just do everything at the spur of the moment whenever I feel like it. There needs to be some structure, and metal can kind of bring us that. And when that structure is there, it's very helpful to us. And that's how you know it's working. It's not hindering you. It's not like I'm constrained by the structure. And maybe if you are a very creative wood or fire or something like that type of person, I find if you create the structure yourself, it's like you're telling you the rules. It's easier than someone else telling you the rules. Like I don't like to be told. Other people telling the rules to me. Okay, calmness and discipline, honourable. I'm just reading out of some of these things, out of the traits out of this book, so I don't forget some of these things. Methodical, neatness. So maybe just tidying up, that's also a metal thing you can do. You clean up your house, do that whole spring clean kind of a thing. So we go wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. So water element, this is a really interesting one, because the water element has the ability to be very diverse, very different, right? Water can be very calm and still and not doing too much destruction, but water can be violent and big and moving and destructive and also create energy, right? We use it to make power in power stations and things like that. Think about waves, think about the ocean, right? It can go from one thing to the next so quickly. So people are jumping into this stream, or you're coming in later after the fact and you would like to ask a question, please don't let me doing this topic put you off asking a different question. That's what the stream is for, asking questions. And we're just kind of testing the waters here to see what's a good time for people. So I'm pretty sure it's evening in the USA right now for people. Anyway, so water has that ability to transform, right? It's a transformational thing. So the water, one of the biggest traits of the water type, the constitutional type, is those people can do a lot of stuff alone, in solitude, and be quite happy within their solitude. They don't need a fucking people dancing around them, telling them how good they are all the time, or, a lot of song and dance going on for them, or, people interested in them, or people in their world. And sometimes we lack that. If you're a fire type of person, you might feel very alone in your own self time. I don't know what to do here. How can I be? What can I need to call someone. And what we often probably do in modern times is we turn to our phone to be entertained. Like entertainment is definitely a fire category thing. Turn to those things to almost distract us because we don't like to be in our own lonesome time. Now, I'm not saying be alone, be lonely, but it's okay, and you'll actually find that maybe that productive nature, and that's part of sort of maybe drawing on the calmness and the structure of metal, and then the stillness of water, right? So that aspect of water being stillness. Now, the other aspect of water is adventure, right? Let's go on an adventure. Let's see where the world takes us. Let's go to the other, let's travel and not take any sort of, a massive bag with us. We just sort of go, or we go camping, or we do stuff like that. So that imaginative and curious kind of nature about us, that's all water. So bringing that into the new year, finding some space for that might be helpful for you. Look, water people could also be quite good with money, thrifty. They can survive. They're survivor type of people. They can survive on very, they don't need to spend money on themselves. So a little water thing to do would be, let's give myself a bit of a budget, and a very strict budget, and just see what I can do with that. And that would in turn make you be quite creative for something that you do for yourself, right? Rather than, especially if you don't have any limits on how much money you can spend on certain things. I remember some of the most creative times and the most adventurous times I had was when I was younger and I had hardly any money, right? You're a student. We all think of the student life. And it's not fun. I'd rather have financial resource than not have financial resource. And I'm not swimming in the cash like Donald Duck or something, like screw whatever that, character is. So I remember when my sister and I were probably just finished high school or around that time. There's two things that we would do. One is like we used to get this voucher book that was in, like if you're in the US, it's coupons, right? So you used to pay $50 and you get this voucher book for all the restaurants, the local restaurants around. They used to call it the entertainment book. And no joke, we had not enough money to buy ourselves the food that we wanted to have when we went out, like a coffee. So, and sometimes we'd go out with some friends, and the coffees weren't that expensive then, but this is 20 years ago. So I remember lining up in the coffee line, and using my voucher with someone else in front and saying to them, would you mind using this voucher so that I can get a free drink? It's like buy one, get one free. Had no shame asking that. And they were probably just so bloody surprised. They were like, okay. And plus you're young and whatever, you can get away with that sort of stuff. We also used to go to a cafe where this is so terrible doing this in a way. Like, I don't think the cafe knew. But we would go to this cafe in Mount Lawley that had a supermarket next to it. And we would go to the supermarket, we would get this apple sparkling juice that we really liked, and it wasn't cold. So we'd take it off the shelf and we'd put it in the little freezer section. And then we would just walk around the supermarket till that drink got cold. We would bring the drink to the cafe next door once it was cold and we'd bought it. And we would order our coffees, probably using these vouchers. And then, there was three of us, me and my sister and this other friend that we used to hang out with. And then we would, I just remember that drink being part of it. We would just be drinking the drink that we'd bought from the supermarket next door. The cafe never, either they didn't notice or they didn't say anything. So we'd still purchase something from them. But yeah, it was just that those times were like, you were forced to be really creative when you don't have that much money. And that thrifty nature is like a water element person would be doing that, but they don't need to do that. Just, the George Costanza of my wallet, and it's like, no, I don't want to pay for anything. And, really, really annoyingly sort of splitting the bill and things like that. Anyway, so we've done earth, metal, water. So those are some things that you can bring. Don't bring stinginess into the new year if you can help it. But yeah, conserving your resource, right, is good sometimes. So then that brings us to wood. Now, wood is expansive, and this year, in the year of the snake, it's the yin wood snake. So there is going to be some just natural creative kind of energy in the and part of what we're talking about with wood is that growth and creativity, right? So wood is about life purpose and planning, so seeing a future for your life. So if you're the sort of person that's like, oh, here's another year, it's just upon me, and I feel like last year just happened and I had no, the stuff just feels as if it happens to you and you have no control in it, or you're not, you don't have any desire, you don't put forth any desires. Now, just because you make a plan doesn't mean all that stuff happens, but you are going to feel more in control, which is probably a wood-natured thing, if you have a plan versus it just happens to me whimsically, especially if you feel disappointed from that whimsical thing, right? You feel like, oh, last year just finished and I don't even know where the year went. You're saying stuff like that. I don't know where the year went. I don't know what I accomplished. So think about a plan. Now, a great thing to do if you want to get in the zone of this is do it every day. Write your goals down every day, even if you just got 2 or 3 goals. And you can write them in prospective way, like I am the healthiest I've ever been in my life, rather than saying this year I'm going to lose 10 kilos or this year I'm going to be able to, beat my person. It might be a fitness goal, whatever it is like that. So yeah, planning and making goals, commanding, decisiveness. There are wood element traits like confidence, assertiveness. Just going for it, just being confident. And the part of that is the risk, right? It's not always going to work out. Well, you don't, now I've just told you it isn't going to always work out, but it may work out. And that's something that we have to, plan for and think about. Anyway, we just have to plan and see what happens. And that not being sure is sort of part of that wood element energy. If people are jumping in the stream new, you can definitely ask a question in the chats. I'd love to have your questions here. That's fine. Let us know where you're tuning in from, what part of the world. That'd be great. So yeah, in a disordered way, like you see wood element types being too assertive and they become aggressive and they sort of dominate others, and they're like, I'm not saying do that, but that assertiveness and taking some kind of charge of what you want to do and thinking about my life in the future. If you can't think about 5 years in advance, think about 2 years in advance or 1 year or even a month in advance. Where would I like to see myself in a month from now? That kind of stuff. That's sort of wood element sort of thinking. The other thing that the wood element brings to us is creativity, right? So, trying something new that you've never done before. That's going to explore creativity. Allowing yourself not to have the rules. So if you're a very metal type dominated and you're like, I always have rules and regulations. Like when you cook a recipe, this is a good way to know if you're more metal or more wood. Do you use a recipe when you cook a food? When you cook a recipe, when you cook a meal or you make something, do you generally use a recipe? Have you ever cooked something that you don't know what it is and see what happens? I do. I know a lot of people don't do that. Let's just put some ingredients together and see what happens. I did this last night because I've been on this keto carnivore kind of diet, and so something arrived yesterday that I've been waiting for it to come, like food wise, and I was like, okay, I need to make I'm going to try and make a little carnivore sauce to go with this. So in a pot, I just put some butter. Like I know how to make a white sauce with flour, but this has got no flour. So I was just like, okay, I'll just brown a little bit of butter. I'll just tip in half a tub of cream. The cream was going to go off if I didn't use it anyway. So I was like, okay, put all the cream in there. And I was like, I'm just going to dump a whole bunch of cheese in and make a cheesy sauce and a little bit of the meat juice from the steak that I just cooked up, tipped it all in. And man, that was the best cheesy sauce I've ever tasted. It was so yummy. And it tasted as if it had the thickness of flour in there and didn't need that. Now that could have turned out terrible. It could have just turned out, gross and yucky. But I know some people just won't do that. But if you will easily do that, just make things whimsically. Let's say you're not creative in the kitchen or you don't like being in the kitchen at all. It might be in a different area of life, So yeah, that's a good way to know whether that's a dominant trait for you. So yeah, we want to think about that. Now, the final one is fire. And fire helps us with relationships in the more love way rather than the nurture way. Okay, so you have two parts of relationships. If you're in it's hard to talk about this now because so I don't want to trigger the wrong words on the YouTube. But the sexual nature of love, of a love relationship, that's definitely a fire part of things, right? So I'll leave that to your imagination and your creativity to work out how you're going to do that. But also sociability. So just a social person, like meeting new people, engaging in social things, and that might not be something that comes naturally to you and easily to you. So feel free to explore that area and know that that's a fire element aspect. People that are naturally charismatic. So if you find it hard to talk to people, or either on the phone or in person, give it a try. It can be really hard for people. I understand that it can be hard. But these are skills that you can learn, and that is it is going to nourish your fire element to do that, right? So fire characteristics are like devotion. You know, you really love something, and it might not be a person even. It can be that love of, like, I just really love this thing and I would do anything for it. Like, true love is, you know, self-sacrificial love, like, you know, devotion, and just like, I'm just here for you. I'm adoring you. I'm, it's coming up to Valentine's Day, right? Like that kind of stuff, like that. Some people who are not wired like that would think that's just all nonsense. You know, you see it in movies, you know, like, the person has strewn the house with roses everywhere and put candles everywhere, and like, it's not like you have to do that, but like those things of love and adoration and affection are all fire element things. So, you know, enthusiasm and alertness, right? So we see that in our Shen, in our eyes. People that are connected to something that they are enjoying in life, their eyes are bright. Especially let's say you have a friend, you're talking with friends, and they're just sort of like a bit dull, and then they start talking about something they love, might be Dungeons and Dragons, and they're like, oh wow, your eyes are lit up then, like, or some kind of, you know, thing that they love. So that's part of that. If people have a question, please put that into the comments, even if you're just dropping into the stream. I'm not sure what's the greatest time to do these streams, so this is kind of testing the waters here. With this time, the other time that I'm doing them is really for the UK people on a Friday night for me. So we're talking about 5 elements in the new year, and that kind of just wraps that up. So these are all that's just sort of an overview of the personality, characteristics, the traits. You know, we have emotions associated with all of those elements as well. So fire is joy and pleasure. So doing things that you just for the sake of enjoying it, something pleasurable, something even to the point of just it being fun and frivolous even. People who are very dominant in the fire traits tend to be easy to spend quite a bit of money. They're not like it's not like the thrifty water dominant types. So pleasure and enjoyment and things like that. And look, that might be something that you think, okay, I don't need more of that, Maria. I actually need to curtail some of that this year. Like, maybe that's not. So you might need to draw on some metal to have some discipline around that, right? Like, yeah, I love chocolates, but I can't eat them for hours and hours a day, like every day. So you can draw on other types to kind of help you with that. But also to understand that if that is your dominant aspect of you, curtailing that completely might not be in the cards for you. It might not be a great way to live, because you're not going to be maybe you're not going to be satisfied, or maybe find a different way of satisfying that pleasure, right? So, you know, you're starting a new year and you think, you know, you want to lose some weight, or you want to be a bit more healthy, cutting out sugar, for instance. You're like, oh, that was my guilty pleasure. That was the thing I really enjoyed, and now I can't have that. What will I do now? and that you're just feeling miserable because you're not having that pleasure that you normally would have. So you got to maybe find something else that's going to be pleasurable to you, that's not going to cause you any kind of detriment. Like, don't pick a different sugar, like pick something else. Maybe it's not a food thing. It might be something that you do that you can also find pleasure in. Yeah, so fire belongs to joy. Wood belongs to frustration, anger, resentment. So these tend to be thought of as negative emotions, and often they are, but it can also be a positive, because in the right circumstance, when you're angry about something, you're going to do something about it. So it's not always like, hey, you're an angry person, you're a bad man angry. You are that emotion can kind of serve us. Now, it's probably one of the most common ones to get out of balance, anger, because what anger does is, what the wood element it wants to do is move and spread. And when we get a thing called liver chi stagnation, it's literally that stuckness of that wood. It can't move, and it's easy to get frustrated and angry. So there's not really any purpose in that. Like, if you feel like you're a snappy Tom all the time, like you're snapping at people and you're just angry and that sort of thing. The best way to solve for that in your life is, if you're not doing exercise, start doing regular exercise in some way. Like, even if you just do walking every day, you're just going to let off that steam. It's got to be every day. For the most part, I would suggest 45 minutes as the minimum time. You don't need to exercise for hours and hours, but you don't want to just do it for sort of 5 minutes now. But if 5 minutes is all you've got, that's definitely better than nothing at all. Just sort of trying to find the time to do the exercise will be very beneficial if you feel like you just can't control the anger. Yeah, okay. Now, if it's really that bad, maybe you need to go to anger management and stuff like that, or whatever you do cognitively. But physiologically, if that steam is being let off, you won't have that pent up stuck energy, stuckness. All right. So if there's any questions here, this has been a bit of I don't know if this time's a good time. There's not really much going on in the chat here. There's people coming into the stream, but they're very quiet. Finding the right time for the US is not the greatest for me, I think, because I have to get up very, very early. We're the opposite on the world to the US. So it's 9 a.m. now. It must be 9 p.m. or maybe 10 p.m. or something like that. So maybe I could do, I don't know, would people want to be on a stream at 9 a.m. your time? I could do one 9 p.m. my time, I guess, something like that. Anyway, so yeah, we have wood is anger and frustration, resentment. Fire is joy and pleasure. Earth is worry and pensiveness. So that emotion is kind of thinking and the thought process. Rumination is a good part of that, is the healthy part of that. The out of balance part of that is worry. So if you're a person that's just worrying all the time, that belongs to the earth element. Metal has two emotions. One is sadness and the other is grief. So if there's been a loss, it's definitely metal. And sadness is kind of like the sort of like the feeling like in Chinese medicine, they think of sadness as what they say is it dissolves qi. So there's kind of a letdown. There's not always a loss in sadness, but there often is. And even it might be what they call an imagined, assumed loss. Like it hasn't happened yet and you start feeling sad about something that you're thinking about might happen. like for instance, people get a diagnosis of a terminal illness or something, quite a bad diet, and they're thinking, they're imagining the loss of, the future loss that might happen, that possibly will happen. And that can be just as devastating as something that they have lost for some people, right? So that those emotions are associated with metal. And then we have fear and fright associated with the water element. So fright is in shock. Okay, so if you're driving along in your car and you suddenly get hit from behind and you weren't expecting it, and there's this sort of jumping, starting, that can disrupt the heart and the kidney communication, which is the ability of fire to sort of descend into water. And that is a very common thing for people with sleep issues. Yeah. So people feel free to ask a question in the chat for different questions. I'm happy to answer things. I've just got this topic to kind of get us started here on the thing. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is it was a question here. I might just put it up the top there because then I don't have to redo it. The role of fruits in dampness was a question on one of my videos very, very recently. And I might make just a longer, proper video. Oh, yeah, great. Awesome to see you, artist Sia. Yeah, please feel free to ask a question. I'm not sure what time to do these live streams for people, so I'm just testing a few different time slots. This is hopefully going to catch some people in different places. So maybe let me know. Can I do face reading? No, I don't know how to do face reading. Sorry. Your internet's choppy. That might be hard as well. I do know a practitioner who does it, and we might be able to have her on the channel because she's in Perth, and she could maybe do an episode with us to talk about face reading. Maybe if you have any other particular questions about it. It's called physiognomy. Chinese physiognomy. What's interesting about Chinese medicine is there's so many branches of it, aspects of it, right? And it's hard to be good at all of it. They sort of talk about jack of all trades, master of none. I know probably a lot more about a lot of different things within Chinese medicine just because I'm a kind of a curious person. I've interviewed people that are experts on those things sometimes, and that's helped me learn about it. But because I'm teaching Chinese medicine, I kind of get more exposed than the average practitioner. And that's not necessarily means that those practitioners are doing anything wrong. It's just that, and it actually would be sometimes better because you've only got so much space, brain space and stuff or whatever to, time. It was not really brain space, but it's, time to kind of learn those things. So the more of an expert someone is in something, it's kind of probably better. Happy Aquarius moon and wood snake. So that's kind of, if people have just jumped in here, we were kind of talking at the start about the role of the 5 elements in this year. And being the wood element aspect of this year, that you can expect those things, those wood traits to be easier, like creativity to be easier, growth and change, right? So change is a big thing people find hard, and it's common, it's not a common thing people like. There's not many people that like change, and you can expect this year change is going to come. I mean, you can already see that in a political global sense, but then that's not the only thing. It's like, just in your own life, there's things that you might have wanted to change or do in your life, and it doesn't matter who's the president or the prime minister or whatever. Like, they're not going to come to knocking on your door and make you do the right thing for your health or do the right thing for your life or make your dreams come true or your goals that you want to do, right? You still have to get in and do those things yourself. There's certain things that can happen in the world that would make that harder or easier for you, depending on what your goals and what your things are. But yeah, I think this is a good year to have goals if you're not a goal person, because it is a wood year, right? That's a good idea to do that. Yeah. So if people would like to ask a question, it's a good time to ask a question. So I'm just going to talk about this thing about fruits. So a couple of books. I've got a lot of Chinese medicine books about things. Now, this is one that I've always found really interesting, and I don't know if you can get this anywhere. I've got it in China, so a long time ago, but it's called Fruits as Medicine. It's by Penduluk Publications. So it's each page is kind of like nicely written. It looks as if it's written out like a person writing it, but it's not. It's a font. There are actually some really interesting recipes of fruits. Now, something about food therapy and dietetics in Chinese medicine is these kinds of things are like recipes for when something is wrong with you. So it's very strategic, or you're treating something. You're using that fruit as if it's maybe with herbs, but it's as if it's a herb. It's a treatment for something. So it's not like an everyday food. Now, there would be some suggestions where it says, if you have dryness, right, you can eat these regularly or something like that. So we'll take something like just as simple as apple, because apples are kind of a universal food, right? As in most countries have apples. And like these are things that there's kind of like a recipe, a specific, it's actually quite a lot. Sometimes when you read this, you think, wow, that's a lot of stuff. So it says hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, for instance. Take 2 pieces of fresh fruit, peel and eat. Do this 3 times a day for 3 days. So that's quite a lot of one particular fruit. Now, I'm not saying, I've not tested that theory out. I've not done it for any patients or, done it on myself. But what I do want to say about fruits particularly is that they're powerful foods, right? So maybe we should use a bit more caution with the everyday eating and the everyday consumption of them, and not sort of hoe into this stuff ad hoc like people do in their general diet. Now, it depends on what else you eat, and certainly fruits are going to be a better choice than anything out of a packet if that was the choice between the two. Right, so a banana versus a Snickers bar, a candy bar, whatever you guys call it in the US. In Australia, we call it chocolates and lollies. Lollies is the word we use. You guys call it candy. Candy. So anything, let's say you're having, you want something sweet. So like swapping those things or having better choices. I'm not saying don't do that. But hoeing into the sugary things, whether that sugar comes from fruit or that sugar comes from candies or lollies, is somewhat the same. In the your body's getting that sugar and it doesn't really kind of need that. The use of fruits is then often for a specific reason, and it's like a specific thing that's used. So. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of touch on that question, I guess, a little bit. I think if you've got dampness, one of the biggest issues is you don't want sugar in your diet as much as you can. You want less sugar. You want no sugar as possible, because that's going to cause dampness. And fruits, even if you cook them, they still have a lot of a large amount of sweet. So I don't think that's kind of going to be that it's going to be useful. Anyway, all right. So are there any other questions that people have about other things? About other Chinese medicine things? Yeah. So just here to answer your questions. Another book that I've got here about the fruits and stuff is this one. I don't know if this is easy to get either, but it's got some really interesting kind of recipes in it. It's called Diseases Treated with Fruits and fruits, melons, fruits, and vegetables. And yeah, it just basically goes through various illnesses, like for instance diarrhea, epilepsy, lumbago, dysentery, even things like you've got carbuncles and stuff like that, hemorrhoids, and just gives you various fruit. It's not just only having that. Like for instance, hemorrhoids, it says dried persimmon, black agaric, I'm not sure what that is, and brown sugar, decocting all them together. I think you would eat it. So there's actually sometimes fruits, these kinds of recipes might be used externally in that area, but not this one here particularly. So that is a use of fruits in Chinese medicine. It's just not very commonly prescribed, and then we don't have much data in modern use about its efficacy, because most practitioners would would be doing acupuncture or herbs or both of those things, and that's what they're relying on for the treatment. So if they're doing that and they give people this food thing, you won't know what's working, what caused, if it got better, which one made it get better. Yeah. All right. Thanks, artist. CFO. He said thanks for teaching us. Your information is invaluable. Thank you. Yeah. Oops. I'm just going to see, are there any other questions that people have? I want to wish you all a happy Chinese New Year. Hopefully you're having a good time, enjoying. I've seen that it's been very, very cold in the US. Snowing there, I think. Super cold. It's very hot in Perth where I am. It's no end in sight of the heat right now. All right, let's have a quick look. If there's any other questions that I haven't answered from the channel, let's have a quick look there. Yeah. YouTube has changed where they put the comments. I was like, where can I see all my comments? And the questions and things like that. Yeah. So let's have a quick look down here. I didn't prepare too many questions today because I thought there'd be more on the stream. Usually there are people wanting to ask stuff. Yeah, but I haven't done streams much last year, so I think all the people don't get notified anymore. I have to keep doing them to get the the YouTube thing to let you know that it's there. Yep. So I'm just working on a series at the moment, like introduction to Chinese medicine for beginners. I've just recorded those videos. I'm just doing the editing now, so it's like, what to expect when you go to a Chinese medicine practitioner, if they're an acupuncturist or a herbalist. That hopefully that'll come out. That'll be good. I'm trying to spend a bit more time or a bit more effort, which equals time, in making the videos, the quality. So if people have a question, new people coming in the stream, please feel free to ask your question. There'll probably be a few more videos about damp heat and damp. Someone asked about damp cold. That's a common. That's another thing we could maybe discuss now if there's no other questions. So damp, cold. So in Chinese medicine, there are different causes of disease from that they see to Western-based kind of causes, Western medicine. I'm just going to put this up on the screen here so we can kind of add this into the chart. And one of the causes of disease is considered external things, like things from the environment. So what does that mean? It means like wind, cold, dampness, heat, like can actually cause disease. It actually sort of implies more like that the body is having a difficulty to like everything's about homeostasis. So our body's energy, or our system, however you want to think about that, is constantly, like, we're constantly interfacing with the environment. It gets too cold, you do something to face that coldness, right? It gets too hot, you do something to face that heat. So what I mean by that is, like if you go outside and it's really, really cold, then you might feel a sense of being cold. So then you do something about it. You put your jacket on, you try to warm up. If you don't have a jacket, your body's going to start doing things to try to face that cold. Now, if you've ever been stuck, I don't know, you see this on a movie. I've never been stuck in a freezer, but you see this, like, the two people are in the movie, and they're the bank. They're sort of running for their dear life, and they're locked in a freezer or something. You're going to shiver because your body's trying to raise its temperature to fight that cold. Now, that's an extreme example. Now, what we do with Chinese medicine, with either acupuncture or Chinese herbs, or even with diet therapy, is we're trying to help the body do what it naturally would do, because the system our body already has is kind of a perfect system. It knows how to face the cold. It knows how to face the heat. It's just that if that mechanism isn't working properly, we don't have to create a new mechanism. That's a big difference in Chinese medicine with how it thinks about things, and why, using something like antibiotics, for instance, to kill the infection. We're like, no, your body actually can do that itself. Well, why isn't it doing it in this instance? Why isn't it doing it in this circumstance? And there are some scenarios with, like, herbal formulas. I can only really give that as an example rather than acupuncture, because acupuncture can't put some substance in your body. Acupuncture can literally only do what your body naturally is going to do. So we might use a formula that has some cold herbs in there, like if someone's got heat, let's say they've got a raging infection, and there's also something in there to help the body do its function, raise its function to do what it's supposed to do. But there's also some cooling things in there to sort of ease the symptoms, ease the burden of the symptoms. It's quite nuanced how the formulas are created in herbal medicine. Now, with acupuncture, it might be just like dredging the channel. Like, there's a bleeding method that's used for infection sometimes. Like, don't want to gross anyone out, and if you're new to acupuncture and you're like, maybe I don't want to go to an acupuncturist now, but these methods where they're sort of pricking the points and bleeding them, they're mild kind of bleeding methods. But there are other methods where bloodletting kind of methods, and that is literally letting the heat out of the vessels. There's a concept within Chinese medicine, that's the modern interpretations of Chinese medicine, that kind of looks at what were they trying to say in the original text, where they were looking at what are these channels, the acupuncture points. Actually, there's a high correlation with blood vessels in the body anyway, or the integration of blood vessels. So it's really is looking at the flow of blood, qi, if you like. That word is kind of the the pushing of the blood, right? So it's still a lot of it's got to do with blood. So when you're doing an acupuncture treatment to get rid of, let's call it toxic heat, like someone's got an infection somewhere, then we kind of would literally let the heat out of the vessel by letting some blood out of that vessel. So the environment, right, getting back to how disease is created, like we're interfacing with the environment, we're feeling hot, we're feeling cold, we adjust as best as we can, and if we're doing that, we're usually not getting sick. Now, one of the causes of disease, these external causes, is also dampness, and this is the bit where people get confused. It can easily get confused because dampness can come in from the environment, and dampness can also be what they call internally engendered. It means it can happen internally. So if dampness comes in from the environment, it is literally living in a damp area, like living in if let's say damp cold, you'd have to be exposed to dampness and cold in the environment somehow. Like maybe you live in a basement, there's a moldy houses where it's cold, where the weather's cold. Mold can grow in those damp, cold places, but mold can also grow in dampy, heaty kind of places. So if you've had flooding in your area or in your house, and then there's mold, there's that sort of thing. So I think that's part of the concept of damp heat and damp cold is certainly the issues that people know about now, where they get diseases caused by mold. That there's certainly a dampness kind of aspect to that, right? The biggest way we see dampness affect us from the environment would be through food. Like we're getting in Australia we call it gastro, which is like gastroenteritis. We like to shorten everything here. You've got food poisoning, that kind of a thing. So you've got vomiting, diarrhea, maybe cramping, like your body's trying to get that poisonous substance out. It's ingested something poisonous. We could also see damp heat as a symptom in a hangover. All right, a good example of that. It's the same thing. You've ingested something poisonous. It's just not as toxic as the bacteria in, E. coli or something like that, where you've ingested the poison. So your body wants to get that poisonous stuff out of you, and literally the treatment would be this purgative kind of treatment for a very short amount of time, and that's like important to note. Now, I wonder whether people are so intrigued by damp heat and damp cold on my channel, because I get a lot of questions about it and a lot of stuff. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to answer your question in a sec, Artist Seer. That's great. Damp heat and damp cold, because it might be, I don't want to say it's misdiagnosed, but it's maybe more commonly said in TCM than it actually is, or there's an internal component to it. So the treatment shouldn't be so purgative. Like if it's an acute scenario and it is truly from the environment, then these sort of purgative or short-lived beans sort of treatments are good, right? So you might go into a book like some of these diet therapy books, not these ones because they're fruits, but I've got other ones, and they'll say, "I'll use beans for dampness," and I'm just going to capture your question there so we can answer it in a sec. So yes, that you can use that. Now, if there's any aspect of deficiency in a person, we should be really cautious with the use of the purgative types of things that we do, and we would probably need much more tonification. So the other way we get rid of dampness is literally pouring more sunshine on the area. Now, you could go out in the sun. I'm not saying do that and get burnt and things like that, but the sun is equivalent to the yang, right? And so the more you kind of bring the warmth, it dries the damp, and that's actually a different way of using herbs. It's not purging the damp. It's not a purgative sort of thing. And were you to use a purgative kind of a scenario, the person would actually either get, like, probably get worse, a big chance of getting worse, because they're too deficient to tolerate that purging sort of treatment. So we have to be careful about that. Now with damp cold, I'm going to come back to this question in a minute, and we'll talk about, like, we'll answer this one now, and then we'll come back and talk about how we might treat sort of damp cold in a different way maybe. So my 2.5-year-old granddaughter was running a fever yesterday. What would you do in that case? She had a runny nose and sneezing. Today, much better. So look, what's great about kids is they get sick. Not great that they get sick, but they get sick quickly and they get better quickly. And kids are the perfect example, for the most part, to watch how our physiology functions. Because when you get sick with a cold or a flu, so what first happens is we say catch cold, right? So what happens is your body, everything's contracting. The first symptom of a wind cold attack or wind strike or whatever is, like, usually the neck's tight. You feel tight in your neck. Now, little kids aren't going to say this. They're not going to notice, right? The first thing you're going to notice in the kid is the fever. But for an adult, it's like, oh, my neck's tight. And you're sort of, and you might feel as an adult tired. You just feel unusually tired. You're like, I was normal in the morning, and then in the afternoon, man, I just want to lie down. I'm just feeling tired. And you'll feel cold, the tiredness and the cold. And you feel like, oh, maybe you're just wearing extra blankets or wearing blankets. Yeah, if you're really, really cold, you might be wearing a blanket around the house. Now, what happens next is that's your body's way of trying to heat up. It's making you feel cold so that when you put the covers on, it's going to help you heat up inside, and then that creates that sweat. And then when your pores open, you sweat, it usually could resolve the problem. So with kids, they will get that fever high quite quickly, because to get a fever, you have to have yang, right? To get sick, you have to have some kind of health, right? You have to have enough yang to do that. People who have autoimmune conditions and their body's constantly fighting itself and they're sick, they can't often get a fever. They don't get colds and flus very much. And that's actually not considered really that healthy in Chinese medicine. So you'll see kids get really hot really quickly, and that heat will generally then resolve the condition, right? Most of the time. Now, it's always a worry, and please don't take this as like, oh, Marie said do this, and like, if you're not sure about something, go and see your practitioner. If you've got a kid with a fever and you're not sure what to do, like, if you've got a herbalist or even an acupuncturist that you trust, that you know that is already your family practitioner, doctor, then they can often help with this sort of stuff in the early stages of getting sick, and save you having to kind of go off and get antibiotics. But there's always that risk with kids that they can get a high fever, and you worry about them having something more serious, right? So kids could have meningitis if they had a rash, or there's lots of things that can happen. But for the most part, kids can get sick and then they can get better, like, really quickly, and you'll be like, man, you were like looking like you were dead as a doornail yesterday, and now today you're running around as normal. And for an adult to get that sick, they'd be sick for a week, right? Which just shows they've got that resilience of their yang. So there's some things we can do to make it easier and to help. So what you want to do is you want to help this process. You don't want to stop that process. So you don't want to give kids Nurofen. I see this, I don't know what you guys call it in the US, ibuprofen is the name of it in Australia, like it's the drug name. It's like an anti-inflammatory. We also give kids paracetamol. I think you call it acetaminophen in the US, for fever, right? I'm not saying let the fever go mad, but if you're giving them herbs, they shouldn't need those things, right? Because it kind of suppresses it, and then it can prolong it. The first thing that you want to do for kids with a runny nose and the sneezing, right? So let's say they had a bit of a fever and then the next day they've got this runny nose. This is the physiology of kids, right? Because they have exuberant yang and it's growing. Their earth element, their spleen and stomach, is maturing. It's in the process of maturing, and it's up till about 5 years old. So that means that this is, you're going from milk and, milk products, hopefully breast milk, if it's not that, it's some kind of milk, to solid foods. And that weaning process and that sort of should be a gradual thing and all that sort of stuff. So kids get runny noses very easily from sweet foods, from sugar, from fruit, and all kinds of raw foods. One of my teachers in Chinese medicine pediatrics used to say, if it looks like snot, it's going to make snot. Okay, so if it looks like a banana is a good example. It looks thick. An avocado is a good example. Now, this isn't for adults. Like, you're not going to eat a banana and get snotty. But for kids, that will definitely be the case. So you want to sort of avoid all those foods. Now, this is easier said than done, okay? A 2.5-year-old isn't going to do what you tell them to do at the best of times. And they might not be able to understand what's happening. But what's great is if they don't have those foods to begin with, then you don't have to contend with that. But certainly sugary foods are worse than even the banana and the avocado. So what are the sugary foods? Like pouches, anything in a little pouch that you're sipping on, it's probably got sugary stuff in it. And anything dairy tends to make kids very snotty. So hard cheeses are normally okay, but milk and all this sort of stuff. So we would try to give kids, like if they easily get snotty, a clear, bland kind of diet. And we'll just give them, like, what we try to wean kids on is like rice porridge, which is called congee, which is like a slow cooked rice, literally a rice porridge, mixed with, you've mixed the other food into it, right? So whatever they can tolerate at that point, right? And meat is fine. Chicken might be, you might put chicken, make it with chicken stock. But yeah, just like reducing any sugar, any processed foods, that's going to reduce the dampness, right? And also fresh, like let's say raw fruit, is a big one, to sort of get rid of the snot. So if that's sort of like snot's lingering, right? The kid was sick and then the snot's kind of lingering on. This often happens if you've got a child. You'd notice this if they go to a birthday party and they have a lot of sugar. Then I don't have any kids, but I've got some, it's a couple of nieces and nephews. And one of my nieces, she is 4 years old in a few weeks, but 4 years old. Wow, she's already growing up so quick. So I think it was about when she was about 3, like a year ago, and she was sitting at my house, and she likes sort of sing, and I play guitar and stuff, and we're sort of singing along, and I said, we'll make up a song, and I was like, she goes, yeah, I went to the party and I ate 3 lollies, then I threw up all night. That was literally her song. And I just looked at her and I was like, what, did you? She goes, yeah, I ate. She goes, she ate 3 lollies and then she threw up all night. Like, she woke up, and then I said to her mum, my sister-in-law, that I said, she was making this song up about eating lollies and throwing up. She goes, yeah, she threw up last night because she went to this birthday party, and but so even at 3 years old, she's put it 2 and 2 together, that like I ate 3 lollies, like really specific amount of lollies. She doesn't eat lollies that often, and then she's throwing up in the nighttime. I'm sure she ate more than 3 lollies. It was probably more things. We call lollies, we call what you call candy, we call lollies in Australia. If you're in the UK, in the US, and you're wondering what the hell is a lolly. Anyway, so yeah, if once kids have all this food, once they've had it in their diet, once they have it regularly, it's really hard to stop it. Like, they know what it is. I mean, it's hard for an adult to stop it. It's even harder for a kid, especially someone who's a 2.5-year-old kid. They're at that stubborn age, and but that's kind of a big aspect of Chinese medicine, dietetics, is that, like, literally the way we would treat it is to remove all those dampening and what do you call it, like super sweet foods, whether they be fruits or coming from dairy. Like, dairy is considered quite sweet. Yeah. So what's good about kids, and you can see this from your question there, that the fever, like, you want them to have that fever. If you suppress that fever, they probably wouldn't be better today, right? They'd be worse, or it prolongs the illness. Now, you don't want to let kids get a super high fever, like super high, obviously. So what you can do is you can put a cloth on their head, and you can put them into a bath of water. You don't want to put them in freezing water. One of my Chinese medicine, actually he was more of an anatomy, Western medicine doctor teacher, used to teach us Western medicine. He said, you can put cold on the top of their head, like an ice pack or something like that on the top of their head. You don't want to take a kid into an extreme, like, don't put them in an ice bath. That's I'm not saying do that. But just, you run the shower at like a lukewarm or maybe cool, depending on how hot it is in the day as well, to sort of cool them down. And you just monitor that depending on what your circumstances are, how much knowledge you have. Like, some people are more familiar with treating those sort of things at home with their kids. And others are like, no, we've got to rush off to the hospital because it could be something serious. So you do what you do. You do what you've got to do, because it's your kid, right? And you wouldn't want to do the wrong, you wouldn't want to have it go sideways. But I know a lot of acupuncturists and Chinese herbalists who would, easily get their kids through lots of ups and downs with those things. So Chinese medicine has the capacity to deal with that stuff. But you have to get onto it straight away. So another thing to do is if it's your granddaughter, you can't go to you often can't go to, if you're like the Chinese medicine enthusiast and they don't care, they think, oh, this is bullshit, this is a bit of woo weirdness, you can't sort of impose on that, right? But let's say it's your kid, and you are a regular you've got a regular practitioner that you see. What I would do, and I encourage my patients to do this as well, is when it's cold and flu season, right, just get a formula that you can use, kind of just a generic, I get sick. There are formulas that we have like that in Chinese medicine, and they'll tell you what the dosage is for kids, for adults, stuff like that, and they can keep that at home, and then should you get sick, you can start on that straight away. And, be in consultation with your practitioner. If it changes, if something's not right, they can go in and see them. Acupuncture for kids is actually incredibly quick, and I can't say it's painless. It's not painless, but they will not feel a lot of it. It partly just because it's very quick. Often we use points on the hands. Because kids get this exuberantly high fever, there's often the need to kind of, like I said before, with the dampness, like purging. If we're purging damp heat, we wouldn't bleed kids' points very commonly, but it's like a quick treatment, kind of using the points on the hands, and it kind of releases the heat from the channels. So hopefully that's answered your question. And look, it's good that a kid gets sick. It's abnormal if they don't get sick, for sure, right? Kids have to get sick. They have to get colds and flus. The main thing you'd probably be concerned about is, am I going to get sick, right? You're the granddad or grandma. You don't want to get sick. That's what I'd be, right? Like, don't come to me with your snotty nose. I don't want to get sick from you. So, sometimes, like, it's just going to go through the whole household. So, that's when those kind of formulas that can kind of cover the bases is good to have around. Chinese herbal medicine, works the best when you get it into it straight away, right? And we have different formulas for different days of the disease. Like, it's going to progress, like day 1 and 2, or even day 1. It could even just be half of the day 1 is going to be a different formula to day 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and so forth, right? Now, there are ways to kind of mitigate that. That's what I mean by a practitioner might be able to give you a bit more of a coverall, sort of like, it's okay to take this on day 1 and day 5. But like for me, if I get sick with a cold or a flu, I always try to treat it. Obviously, I do Shang Hanlun kind of medicine, and I'll go to the bulk herbs, and I'll try and do it exactly at use the form. Like, for instance, Tongue is a formula that's used for colds and flus, but you can only use that on the first day. And if you miss it that day, right? And even sometimes it's happened to me where you've literally been too sick to make the herbs yourself. Like, the herbs are right there. I just couldn't even make them. I've had to just go home and have a sleep, and I couldn't even, make them. So, or boil, like maybe I've got the formula made, but I just couldn't even boil it up in the thing if you're all by yourself. Like that can happen, right? And it mostly happens to patients that I see. I'm just going to put my aircon off because talking about cold, I think it's about 35 today outside right now, 10:30 in the morning. But it's probably about 20 degrees in here. It's getting cold. Even as a practitioner, you sometimes don't get, you don't get onto it straight away, let's say, or something like that. So, hopefully that's answered that. If anyone has another question, same other question, you're welcome to answer that. But yeah, kids physiology is good to watch. Especially if you're interested in learning the way that Chinese medicine sees the interaction with the environment, kids are the perfect example because they're not tainted by other things, right? As in, they don't have other stuff going on in their usually, for the most part, right? Okay, there's always kids that are unfortunately born with a condition or something like that, but for the most part, it's a clean slate, right? So when we get sick, the environment comes into us the same way it does for a kid, but it affects us differently because we've had a bad diet for a long time, or we've been drinking alcohol, or we have been getting overweight, or we're too underweight, or we might be really, really stressed. And kids aren't really that stressed. Like, what's their biggest worry? Like, I can't get the lolly I wanted to have. I'm talking about 2-year-old, right? Like, yeah. I'm just going to pause here for a second. I will come back, but I've just, my parcel man's just knocking on the door to get my parcels. Oh, I'm back. I have my parcel pick up my parcels today. Yeah, so we're just kind of talking about kids' physiology. Just delete that now. Awesome. All right. Yeah, so if anyone has a question, you can ask a question. I will talk to my colleague about the face reading. We might try to do a thing about that. For people coming in the stream, want to wish you happy Chinese New Year. The year of the snake, the year of the snake. So there's not really a song about the year of the snake, but it made me think of the year of the cat song. The year of the cat, like the year of the snake. I don't even think there is a cat in the Chinese horoscope. So I always wonder where they got that song from. The Year of the Cat. But yeah, the snake is going to be shedding its skin and there's going to be change happening. So prepare yourself in that way. And if you missed the start of the stream, then that's all about the different elements, how can we prepare ourselves in terms of what can they bring to us? The characteristics of the 5 elements. I could talk about that for ages and ages. So yeah, if anyone has a question, now's the time to ask it, or a topic or something, or even you've got an idea for a different video. Sometimes people ask a question and I literally probably can't answer it because I don't know. I don't know everything. I try to be good. I've got a new cushion for the podcast. I got that made on Temu. It just arrived. So, made in China. With our logo. Anyway, yeah, I'm very happy with that new logo. I made that myself with AI. So, AI made it, but it took me a long time to make it because I made it when AI wasn't really good at making things. Yeah, but I love the cushion cover, the cushion cover idea. Oh, I knew that would happen. I knew that would happen when I put that pencil pot there to hold the cushion up. I was like, I should not have pulled that down. All right. So, yeah. All right. We've done the stream for today. I'll probably end it here. So the other time I'm doing it is if it's Friday night, 7 p.m. for me. Not this week, but it'll be next week. So alternating times. We may change this time. We may not change this time. Not sure because this is supposed to be catching people in the US. So if you are in the USA, maybe let me know if you're watching this what would be a good time for you. Because yeah, I'm trying to do the stream when we can have a little bit of back and forward, bit of a chat, and meet some people. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you're doing well, and yeah, I'll see you again. I am making normal videos as well. I haven't published anything for a while, but I will be making normal content every day content as well. All right, thank you.